All right, continuing on with number 6. Okay, a carpetbagger. Carpetbaggers are northerners that moved south after the Civil War to get rich. White southerners had been disenfranchised, which, as you learned in the last video, means that your legal right to vote has been removed. Now, the reason why they took white southerners' votes away and right to run for office is because they had betrayed the United States by seceding from the Union, by breaking away and making their own country. Well, if whites in the South can't run for office, there were some northern whites that said, I'll go run for office down south. And that's exactly what they did. They packed up everything they owned in a carpet bag and they headed down south and they ran for office. And because they were the only white men around that could vote or run for office, they were easily elected. Once in office, these carpetbaggers, these northerners, ripped off the South. They stole every penny that was not nailed down. In fact, at one point, they raised taxes something like 300% throughout the South. All right, number 7 and 8, these two go together, okay? They're opposites of each other. The first one, both of them are Latin terms, by the way. Number 7 is de jure, okay? De jure are practices enforced by law. Okay, so if it's in the law, if it is written in the Constitution or made into law, it is de jure. However, de facto, which means in fact in Latin, practices not sanctioned by law but are enforced due to economic or social factors. Basically, what this is saying is, it's not in the law, but this is something we do anyway. We force people into this pattern because of customs or social factors or economic factors. So, if a practice is in the law, it is de jure. If it is not in the law, it is de facto, or in fact, what's happening. All right. So, part of the battle in the South after the Civil War, during the time of Reconstruction, black people voted for Republicans because the Republican Party is the one of freedom. Republican Party is the one that freed the slaves. Lincoln was a Republican, okay? All the civil rights amendments, the 13th, 14th, and 15th, the original civil rights amendments were voted in by Republicans. Black people were very much inclined to vote Republican. Well, the white Southerners were Democrats, okay? This is the party of the Klan, okay? The Democratic Party created the Klan, okay? So anyway, so what's going, well, they didn't create it, but they were the members of it. Okay, so the literacy test. Now, what the white Southern Democrats wanted to do is stop black Southern Republicans from voting. So they came up with ways to de facto and de jure make sure that these people were disenfranchised, okay? So, a literacy test, okay? Forcing an individual to prove that he can read in order to vote. All right, so you want to vote, you have to prove you can read, okay? Now, the problem with that is who's giving the test, okay? Usually, it was a white Southern Democrat administering the test, and the white guy would get a really easy sentence, like, you know, see, spot, run, right? And even if the white guy didn't know how to read at all, the one given the test would say, it says see, spot, run, okay? So you could just repeat that and you get to vote. Well, a black guy comes in and they would hand him a copy of, let's say, the U.S. Constitution and say, read this. And let's say the black guy completely read the whole Constitution perfectly. Then the white guy behind the counter would say, all right, explain it. Explain what you read, what you comprehended from it. And even if the black man were to explain the entire Constitution, at the end of all that, the white Southern Democrat would simply say, no, man, you're wrong. You can't read, okay? So, de jure, the literacy test, was a real thing, okay? It was in law. But de facto, it was not used correctly, okay? It's not used as it was written. Another way they stop black people from voting is the poll tax, okay? So, forcing people to pay to vote. Now, fortunately, this actually didn't just affect black people. this affected all poor people, which there were a lot of white people that were poor in the South too. It wasn't just poor blacks and rich whites. It's not nearly how it was, okay? But anyway, so if you force people to vote, force people to pay to vote, well then, who gets to vote? Only the rich. And in the South, that was mainly rich white Southern Democrats, okay?